You know Audie Murphy, most decorated soldier in American history, Medal of Honor, 241 confirmed kills, played himself in the biggest war movie of his era. But what if I told you he nearly drowned on a duck hunting trip and was saved by a famous photographer using her bra strap? What if I told you a legendary director wanted Murphy to play one of the most evil villains in movie history, but Murphy died before he could say yes? And what if I told you the same man who killed 241 enemy soldiers had a secret second career writing country love songs? You think you know Audie Murphy? You don't. Not yet. Here are 10 weird facts about the war hero that nobody talks about. Number 1. Saved by a bra strap, 1959. Director John Huston was filming a western called The Unforgiven near Durango, Mexico. The cast included Burt Lancaster, Audrey Hepburn, and Audie Murphy. On a day off from shooting, Murphy went duck hunting with Huston and several crew members on a lake. Austrian photographer Inga Morath was on the production shooting stills for Magnum Photos. She stayed on shore with her telephoto lens. Through that lens, she saw something terrifying. Murphy's boat had capsized. He was hundreds of feet from shore, and the most decorated soldier in American history was drowning. Morath was a strong swimmer. She stripped down to her underwear, dove into the water, swam out to Murphy, and towed him back to shore. According to the story told by people on the production, she pulled him using her bra strap because Murphy was too weak to hold on properly. Here's the weird part. While Morath was saving Murphy's life, the duck hunt continued around them. Gunshots firing overhead. Nobody else noticed what was happening. Inga Morath went on to marry playwright Arthur Miller in 1962. Their daughter, Rebecca Miller, married actor Daniel Day-Lewis. So the woman who saved Audie Murphy's life became the mother-in-law of one of the greatest actors who ever lived. Murphy survived 9 major campaigns in World War II. He survived bullets, artillery, and a burning tank destroyer. But he nearly died on a duck hunting trip in Mexico. And that's not even the strangest connection between Audie Murphy and the movies. Number 2. Almost the Scorpio Killer in Dirty Harry, 1971. Director Don Siegel was preparing to film Dirty Harry with Clint Eastwood. He needed someone to play the Scorpio Killer, a psychopath, a sniper who terrorizes San Francisco. One of the most despicable villains ever put on screen. Siegel's first choice was Audie Murphy. The logic was brilliant in a twisted way. Siegel believed that casting America's most beloved war hero as a vicious killer would shock audiences more than any special effect ever could. The contrast between who Murphy was and who he'd be playing would make the villain terrifying. By some accounts, Murphy actually read the script. He reportedly said the role would have blown his image wide open. Whether he would have accepted is something we'll never know. On May 28, 1971, Murphy died in that plane crash on Brush Mountain in Virginia. Filming hadn't started yet. The role went to a stage actor named Andrew Robinson. Eastwood had spotted him in a play. Siegel cast Robinson because he wanted someone with a face like a choir boy. But imagine, just for a moment, Audie Murphy, Medal of Honor recipient, playing the Scorpio Killer opposite Clint Eastwood. That would have been the most unsettling casting decision in Hollywood history. Murphy nearly played one of cinema's greatest villains. But that's only half of his bizarre legacy in the movies. Because Audie Murphy didn't just star in films. He inspired some of the most iconic characters in cinema history. 2 of them, on opposite sides of the same war. Number 3. He inspired both Rambo and a Nazi. In 1968, a young Canadian author named David Morrell was watching television. The Democratic National Convention in Chicago had turned violent. Police were beating anti-war protesters in the streets. Vietnam veterans were among the angry crowds. Morrell asked himself a question. What would happen if one of those combat-trained veterans went to war with the establishment? And then he asked a second question. What if he were Audie Murphy? That question became a novel called First Blood, published in 1972. The main character was a decorated Green Beret named John Rambo, a man who could do extraordinary things in combat, a man who came home from war and couldn't find peace. Morrell has said publicly, multiple times, that Murphy was a key inspiration. In an interview, he said that Murphy's citation for the Medal of Honor is extraordinary, it's superhuman, and that anything Rambo has done in any of the movies pales in comparison to what Murphy actually did. Every time you watched Sylvester Stallone fire a machine gun or disappear into the jungle, you were watching a character built on the life of a 5'5" kid from Texas who picked cotton and hunted rabbits. Now here's where it gets really strange. 41 years later, Quentin Tarantino pulled the same move, but he reversed it. In Inglourious Basterds, 2009, there's a young German sniper named Friedrich Zoller. Zoller kills hundreds of Allied soldiers from a bell tower. The Nazi propaganda machine turns him into a celebrity. They make a movie about his exploits, and Zoller plays himself in that film. A soldier who becomes famous for extraordinary kills in combat and then plays himself in a movie about his own war record. Sound familiar? Tarantino confirmed it on the DVD commentary. Friedrich Zoller was designed as a Nazi Audie Murphy. Same concept, same trajectory. War hero turned movie star, playing himself. Except Tarantino flipped it and gave the story to the enemy. So Audie Murphy's real life inspired both the ultimate American action hero and a Nazi propaganda figure. The same man's story was used to create John Rambo and Friedrich Zoller. That might be the strangest double legacy in military history. But Murphy's weird side wasn't limited to what happened on screen. If you actually spent time around Audie Murphy in person, the thing you'd remember most had nothing to do with war medals or movie roles. Number 4. The Rattlesnake. In the car. Murphy was a relentless prankster. His co-stars learned this the hard way. On the set of 40 Guns to Apache Pass, actor Kenneth Tobey accepted a ride with Murphy to a remote shooting location. When Tobey got in the car, he looked around. There were handcuffs on the seat, chains, multiple firearms, and a live rattlesnake, just sitting there, in the car, with Audie Murphy driving. Tobey asked about the snake. Murphy didn't explain. He just smiled. That wasn't a one-time thing. Murphy once gave a co-star a hot foot, the old gag where you stick matches between someone's toes and light them. He handed people sealed envelopes and told them the envelopes were full of hatching rattlesnake eggs. He watched them throw the envelopes across the room. During a publicity tour for The Quiet American in the late 1950s, Murphy attended a formal dinner at an upper-class home. Before dessert, he went to the bathroom, put toothpaste around his mouth, and came back foaming at the lips. He told his horrified hosts he'd contracted a rare disease while filming overseas. He let the panic spread for several minutes before he started laughing. The most dangerous man in Hollywood was also the funniest, at least to himself. But Murphy's sense of humor masked something else. A quiet menace that came out when someone pushed him too far. And one night, in Beverly Hills, the wrong man found that out. Number 5. He stared down Hollywood's most notorious brawler. Lawrence Tierney was one of the most violent men in Hollywood, the actor who played Dillinger in 1945, the man who would later terrify the cast of Reservoir Dogs in the 1990s. Tierney was famous for bar fights, arrests, stabbings, and sheer physical intimidation. He was big, he was mean, and he was drunk. At a Beverly Hills party, Tierney was cursing loudly near Murphy's girlfriend. Murphy walked over. He was 5'5". Tierney towered over him. Murphy spoke quietly. "Mr. Tierney, you don't know me. My name is Murphy. I'm here with my girl. Please don't do that anymore." Tierney kept cursing. Murphy didn't raise his voice. He didn't move. He just looked at Tierney. According to witnesses at the party, Tierney looked into Murphy's gray eyes and saw something that made him stop cold. A man who had killed 241 enemy soldiers was standing 5 feet away and asking him politely to be quiet. Tierney got his hat, got his coat, and left. No punches, no threats, just a left. Look from a man who had done things that Lawrence Tierney could only pretend to do on screen. Murphy could scare the toughest man in Hollywood without raising his voice. He could make grown men throw envelopes across a room with a rattlesnake joke. But behind the prankster and the quiet menace, there was a side of Audie Murphy that almost nobody knew about. A side that had nothing to do with killing or comedy. He was an artist. Number 6. Secret Nashville songwriter. Here's something that will stop you cold. The same man who killed 241 enemy soldiers also wrote love songs. In 1961, Murphy was introduced to songwriter Scott Turner through singer Guy Mitchell. Turner expected a tough guy. What he got was a man who sat quietly at his ranch in California and wrote lyrics about heartbreak. Their biggest collaboration was a song called Shutters and Boards. Murphy wrote it in 1962. It's a lament about a man who boards up the windows of the home he shared with a woman who left him. Jerry Wallace recorded it. The song climbed to number 24 on the Billboard Hot 100. That's not a footnote, that's a charting hit. And it didn't stop there. More than 60 artists eventually recorded Shutters and Boards. Dean Martin put it on his 1963 album Country Style. Porter Wagoner recorded it. Jimmy Dean recorded it. Charlie Pride recorded it. The song was cut in multiple languages around the world. Over the next 8 years, Murphy wrote around 17 songs total. His compositions were recorded by Bobby Bare, Roy Clark, Eddie Arnold, Harry Nilsson, Slim Whitman, and Teresa Brewer. His last song, Was It All Worth Losing You, was recorded by Charlie Pride in 1970, 1 year before Murphy died. The most decorated soldier in American history had a second career that almost nobody knows about. And he was good at it. But Murphy didn't just write songs. He also wrote something else entirely. Something that came from a darker place. Number 7. Published war poet. In the spring of 1948, Murphy was living in Hollywood, broke, sleeping on a cot above a gymnasium. His writer friend, David McClure, visited one day and told Murphy a story. An old World War I veteran had once described no man's land as hell 6 feet deep. That phrase haunted Murphy. He sat down and wrote a poem called The Crosses Grow on Anzio. It was about the men who died on the Anzio beachhead in Italy, where Murphy himself had fought. When his autobiography To Hell and Back was published in 1949, Murphy included the poem. But he didn't put his own name on it. He attributed it to a fictional soldier named Kerrigan. Why? Because Murphy didn't want credit. He wanted the poem to belong to the men who didn't come home. Only a handful of Murphy's poems survived. Another one, Alone and Far Removed, dealt with the isolation soldiers feel after combat. A third, Freedom Flies in Your Heart Like an Eagle, was written for the dedication of the Alabama War Memorial in Montgomery in 1968. Murphy read it himself at the ceremony. A man who left school in the 5th grade wrote poetry that moved audiences to tears. A man who picked cotton for $1 a day wrote lyrics that Dean Martin wanted to sing. Murphy had a gift for putting feelings into words, but there was another story he wanted to tell. Not his story, someone else's. A soldier whose courage was so extraordinary that even Audie Murphy was in AWE of it. Number 8. He tried to film Hacksaw Ridge 50 years early. Long before Mel Gibson made Hacksaw Ridge in 2016, Audie Murphy tried to bring that same story to the screen. The story of Desmond Doss, a Seventh-day Adventist from Virginia who refused to carry a weapon. A conscientious objector who enlisted as a combat medic and still earned the Medal of Honor. Doss saved 75 wounded men at the Battle of Okinawa by lowering them one by one off a 400-foot escarpment while under Japanese fire. He wouldn't touch a gun, he just kept going back for more wounded. Murphy was fascinated by Doss. He understood, better than almost anyone alive, what it took to keep moving forward when every instinct told you to stop. Murphy partnered with veteran Hollywood producer Hal B. Wallace, and together they tried to buy the rights to Doss's life story. Doss said no. He was a humble, deeply religious man. He didn't want Hollywood turning his faith into entertainment. He turned down Murphy. He turned down Wallace. He turned down everyone who came calling for the next 5 decades. Doss didn't finally agree to let his story be filmed until the early 2000s. He died in 2006. Hacksaw Ridge came out 10 years later. The movie Murphy wanted to make in the 1960s took until 2016 to reach the screen. And here's the thing. If Murphy had lived, and if Doss had said yes, you would have had the 2 most decorated soldiers of World War II working together on the same film. One earned the Medal of Honor by fighting. The other earned it by refusing to fight. That would have been the greatest war movie ever made, Murphy wanted to honor a man whose courage was different from his own. That tells you something about his character. Because for all the killing and the medals and the movie stardom, the real Audie Murphy valued things that most people never saw, including a brotherhood he kept almost entirely to himself. Number 9. Secret Freemason. For 16 years. Audie Murphy was a Mason, not a casual member, a serious, committed one. He joined the Scottish Rite in 1955 and remained active until his death in 1971. 16 years. He was also a Shriner. He held memberships in lodges in both California and Texas. Murphy never talked about it publicly. He never used it for publicity. For a man who was on magazine covers and movie posters, this was one part of his life he kept completely private. Then, in November 2000, 29 years after his death, the Scottish Rite posthumously awarded Murphy its highest honor, the 33rd degree. This is given only to Masons who have made extraordinary contributions to Freemasonry or to humanity. It was presented to his widow, Pamela, at a ceremony in Long Beach, California. A man who left school in the 5th grade, who grew up in a sharecropper's shack with no electricity and no running water, was posthumously given the highest honor of one of the oldest fraternal organizations in the world. Murphy kept his Masonic life quiet. He kept his poetry quiet. He kept his songwriting quiet. And when it came to his final resting place, he made one last quiet request that tells you everything you need to know about who Audie Murphy really was. Number 10. The Plainest Grave at Arlington. When a Medal of Honor recipient is buried at Arlington National Cemetery, their headstone gets a special treatment. Gold leaf is applied to the Medal of Honor inscription. It catches the light. It stands out. It announces that this grave belongs to someone extraordinary. Audie Murphy said no. He specifically asked that his headstone remain plain, simple white marble, standard government issue, no gold leaf, no special decoration. The same stone that marks the grave of every ordinary soldier buried at Arlington. The man who earned 33 medals wanted his grave to look like he earned none. And yet, Murphy's grave in Section 46 became the second most visited grave at Arlington National Cemetery. Only President John F. Kennedy's grave gets more visitors. So many people came to see Murphy's plain white stone that Arlington had to build a special flagstone walkway just to handle the foot traffic. In the year 2000, the same year he received the 33rd degree, the United States Postal Service put Murphy's face on a 33-cent stamp. Part of the Distinguished Soldiers series, alongside Omar Bradley, Alvin York, and John L. Hines. The kid who picked cotton for $1 a day ended up on a piece of American currency. More than 50 years after his death, people still come. Veterans, families, history buffs. They stand in front of that deliberately ordinary headstone and pay their respects to a man who wanted to be remembered as just another soldier. Here's what gets me. Audie Murphy killed 241 enemy soldiers. He earned every combat medal America had to give. He became the biggest movie star Universal Studios ever had. He was almost the villain in Dirty Harry. He inspired Rambo. But in private, he wrote love songs about heartbreak. He wrote poetry about the men who died beside him. He pulled pranks with rattlesnakes and laughed until he couldn't breathe. He tried to make a movie about a soldier who refused to carry a gun. He joined a secret brotherhood and never told a soul. And when it came time to be buried, he asked for the cheapest headstone in the cemetery. That's not just a war hero. That's not just a movie star. That's a human being. And that's why people still visit that plain white stone at Arlington. Let us know in the comments which fact surprised you the most. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories about legends who were Nors de Rige, more than what the history books remember. Please give this video a hype if you liked it. It will really help us grow.